I know every trope from trashy web novels by heart. So, ever since being reborn into this world, I've braced for plot twists at every turn. I carefully cultivated the persona of someone with crippling paranoia. Delicate and fragile, I turned the Sinclair mansion into a fortress. I patted every sharp corner, triple-tracked my phone, and pinned a GoPro to my chest, recording 24/7. Even my parents ached for me, saying I needed to be showered with love. Years ago, a kidnapper staked me out for months, but never found an opening. In desperation, he tried brute force, only to slam into an invisible security fence. He was caught on the spot. And so I grew up safely wrapped in my parents' love. Until today, when a girl showed up clutching a DNA report. Tearfully, she introduced herself as Claire Sinclair, the real Sinclair daughter.
Sister.
I'm not here to take anything from you, she said, eyes red. I just want a complete family. With that, she grabbed my hand and threw herself dramatically toward a porcelain vase in the corner. Claire bounced off it and landed flat on her back. The smirk forming on her lips froze solid. A second later, she shrieked, "Are you insane? Who makes a vase out of solid rubber?" Claire lay sprawled on the floor, prodding the unmoving blue and white porcelain vase in disbelief. "Why won't this thing break?" "Oh, it's rubber. Solid rubber," I explained in a small voice, peeking out from behind my mother. "Claire, are you okay? The floor is cold. You should get up." My father rushed over to help her up, while my mother knelt beside her, her face etched with concern. "Did you hurt yourself anywhere?" Claire sat up, rubbing her tailbone in stunned silence, her face a shifting palette of white and red. My parents exchanged a look, their eyes filled with a familiar mix of worry and exasperation over my condition. "Claire, please don't mind her," Mom explained softly, patting her on the back. "Eva. She's had a phobia of fragile things since she was a little girl. So we had all the porcelain and glass in the house replaced with this custom-made polymer." The butler helped a limping Claire to her feet. The tear tracks on her cheeks were half dry, her expression a chaotic mess of disbelief and a new, calculating curiosity. I approached her, feigning concern, and gently brushed the dust from her dress. "Are you hurt, Claire? Should we call the family doctor?" "It's all my fault. If I weren't so timid, we wouldn't have all these strange things in the house." As I spoke, my own eyes began to redden, tears welling up. My parents' hearts immediately went out to me. Dad sighed and turned to Claire. "Claire, let the butler show you to your room to rest. I'll have the doctor check on you later. You'll have to be more careful around the house from now
On.
Claire's expression darkened even further. Back in her room, she was clearly not ready to give up. A little while later, she appeared timidly at the door to the living room. Her eyes immediately locked onto a celadone teacup on the mantelpiece, one of the few objects in the house that looked genuinely old and valuable. "Sister, that cup is so beautiful." Her eyes glinted with calculation. I nodded. "It was my grandmother's." Claire's eyes instantly filled with tears. My grandmother, who I never got to meet." Her voice dripped with a mix of longing and faint humility. "I never had nice things growing up. That cup must be very expensive, right?"
Could I
just hold it for a moment?" This two punch of pitiable vulnerability was too much for my parents. Guilt was written all over Mom's face. "Ava, just let your sister look at it. She misses her grandmother, too." I hesitated for a moment before giving a reluctant nod. Claire walked over, picked up the cup with exaggerated care, and as she turned, shot me a triumphant, mocking smirk from an angle our parents couldn't see. The next second, her foot slipped and she lofted the teacup high into the air. Oh no! The cup sailed through the air, heading straight for the marble floor. Claire had already composed her face into an expression of tearful apology. Thump. Bowing. The expected crisp shatter never came. The celadone teacup hit the floor, and instead of breaking, it bounced like a rubber ball several times, before rolling to a stop at my father's feet, completely unharmed. The room was utterly silent. I could practically see the blood rushing to Claire's face, turning it from white to red, then to a deep shade of purple. The cringe was palpable. It was so awkward. You could have built a 3-bedroom apartment out of the second hand embarrassment. My father was the first to break the silence. He cleared his throat, a note of relief in his voice. "Well, thank goodness for that. It's a good thing." Ava insisted we replace everything with this reinforced polymer. Her grandmother adored her, so she had this specially commissioned. "It's indestructible. Otherwise, that precious memento would have been lost today." Mom quickly jumped in to smooth things over. "Yes, exactly. Don't worry about it, Claire. No harm done." Claire just stood there, looking like she wanted the floor to swallow her whole. I walked over, picked up the cup, and blew off a speck of non-existent dust. Then I went to my room, retrieved an identical teacup, and pressed it into her hand. Don't be sad, Claire. Whatever I have, you'll have to. I gave her a beatific, innocent smile. Good thing I had the foresight to ask Grandma for 2 of them. Here, this one's brand new. A gift. You're welcome. Claire clutched the indestructible cup, her knuckles white. She quickly recovered, forcing a stiff smile. Thank you, sister. I see. I'll have to be very, very careful in this house. After 2 consecutive failures, Claire lay low for a couple of days. I figured she was revising her strategy. Soon enough, she set her sights on my older brother, Leo, a man whose only true love is academia. He was the family's resident iceberg, perpetually buried in labs and libraries. With a near total immunity to human emotional cues, Claire adopted the gentle, understanding soulmate approach. She timed his schedule perfectly, bringing him handmade pastries and soups every day. When he inevitably shut the door in her face, she remained undeterred, showing up again the next day. She would also casually showcase her intellect in front of him, reciting obscure poetry or dropping philosophical tidbits, all in a desperate attempt to catch his interest. Unfortunately for her, trying to connect with my brother emotionally was like talking to a brick wall made of textbooks. Seeing her charm offensive was failing, Claire finally bared her fangs. That evening, she rushed up to me in a panic, grabbing my wrist, her eyes gleaming with a manic energy. Sister, quickly. I think that stray cat in the back garden is hurt. It's bleeding everywhere. We have to go help it. Her voice was shrill, laced with a contrived urgency. Just what kind of diversion was this? I let her drag me out to the back garden. It was completely quiet, not a single cat hair in sight. Before I could say anything, Claire clutched her stomach and gasped, "Oh, ouch. My stomach suddenly hurts so much. I need to find a bathroom quick." Her winks and grimaces were laughably amateurish. I nodded, playing my part. Of course you should go. I'll look for the cat out here. She looked relieved, turning and bolting without another word of pretense. I watched her go, then began a leisurely stroll through the garden, even taking the time to water a few of the orchids. When I finally wandered back inside, I was met with the sound of my brother's furious roar. Which one of you bastards destroyed my manuscript? It took me 3 days and nights to finish it. Leo stormed out of his study, his face flushed with rage, his hair standing on end. It was the first time I'd ever seen him so furious. Even my parents came running. We followed him into his study to find a scene of utter devastation. His freshly completed thesis was torn to shreds, and ink was splattered everywhere. Claire covered her mouth, her face a mask of horror. How could this have happened? She timidly tugged on our mother's sleeve and whispered, I think I saw sister walking past brother's study door just a little while ago." My father's expression hardened. My mother frowned, her gaze turning to me, searching for an explanation. "Claire, are you certain it was your sister you saw?" Claire continued her performance.
"Mom, please don't ask."
"It's all my fault." My parents immediately pulled up the security footage from the hallway. The air in the study was so thick with tension you could have cut it with a knife, or in my case, a blunt, rounded safety butter knife. My father's hand hovered over the mouse. "Let's see the footage." Claire was trembling, a perfect picture of a terrified witness. I might have been mistaken, but the dress looked just like Eva's. The monitor flickered to life. The timestamp showed 2 p.m. The hallway was empty. Then, a figure approached Leo's door. Claire held her breath, a small, vindictive glint in her eyes. However, the figure on the screen wasn't walking. They were practically hugging the wall, moving in a bizarre, crab-like shuffle. The figure stopped at the door, looked directly into the camera lens, waved a thumb up, and then continued down the hall without touching the door handle. It was me. I was practicing my tactical wall hugging, I whispered, clutching my chest. "The hallway is too wide. It makes me feel exposed to sniper fire." "See," Claire shrieked, pointing a shaking finger. "She was there." "Wait," Leo barked, his eyes glued to the screen. "She didn't go in. Keep watching." The video continued. 2 minutes later, I was gone. The hallway was empty. Then, the door to the study opened from the inside. A silence descended that was heavier than my reinforced bedroom door. Claire's face drained of color. That's impossible. No one was inside." "Actually," I piped up, my voice trembling with faux anxiety. "Brother, do you remember when I begged you to install the thermal motion sensors and the pressure-sensitive floorboards because I was afraid of invisible ninjas?" Leo blinked, his rage momentarily paused by confusion.
"Yes."
"You paid for them out of your allowance." "Well," I said, pulling my phone out of my pocket. "I have the logs synced to my cloud." I tapped the screen and held it up. A heat map of the study displayed on my phone. At 1:55 p.m., I narrated, pointing to a red blob on the screen. Someone entered through the window. All eyes turned to the open window. We were on the second floor, but there was a sturdy trellis covered in ivy right beneath it. The intruder weighed approximately 115 pounds. I continued, reading the data from the floor sensors. They spent exactly 4 minutes tearing paper. Then, hearing footsteps, my tactical shuffle, they hid in the closet. I swiped to the next timestamp. After I passed, the intruder exited the closet and left through the door. Leo turned slowly to look at Claire. Claire is petite. She weighs exactly 115 pounds. And, tellingly, there were green ivy stains on the knees of her white jeans that she hadn't noticed yet. Claire, Dad said, his voice dangerously low. Why is there moss on your pants? Claire looked down, panic exploding in her eyes. She tried to brush it off, stammering. I was gardening. I wanted to cut flowers for brother. You tore my thesis, Leo said. It wasn't a question. His voice was cold, stripped of all brotherly affection. He walked over to her, looming like a thundercloud. Do you have any idea what that research meant to me? I didn't. It was Eva. She hacked the sensors. Claire wailed, backing away until she hit the bookshelf. She grabbed a heavy bronze bookend to steady herself.
Clang.
The bookend fell on her foot. She didn't scream. She just stared at it. It had bounced off her toes. Foam. I whispered helpfully. I dipped all heavy metal objects in high-density industrial foam last year to prevent toe stubbing. Claire looked at me with pure, unadulterated hatred. She had been caught red-handed, saved from pain by my paranoia, and humiliated all in one go. Go to your room, Dad said, rubbing his temples. Leo, I will pay for a restoration team to salvage the manuscript. Claire, we need to talk about your need for attention. After the manuscript incident, the atmosphere in the Sinclair mansion shifted. My parents were no longer just guilty about Claire's past, they were wary of her present. But Claire was resilient. She was a protagonist in her own mind, fighting against a villainous, me, and a plot that refused to cooperate. She decided to play the long game. A month later, the Sinclair annual charity gala approached. This was the classic debutante face-slapping arc. I knew it like the back of my hand. She would try to ruin my dress, sabotage my entrance, or frame me for pushing her down the stairs. I prepared for all three. On the night of the gala, I wore a dress that looked like spun moonlight. Claire wore a striking red gown, looking predatory and beautiful. She cornered me at the top of the grand spiral staircase while the guests mingled below. You think you've won, Claire hissed, leaning in close. But tonight, everyone will see you for what you are. A jealous, unstable freak who hurts her own sister. She grabbed my arm. Her plan was obvious. Throw herself down the stairs, screaming that I pushed her. It's the oldest trick in the book. Claire, wait, I said, eyes widening. Safety check.
What?
Gravity check. Before she could launch herself, I deployed the emergency staircase safety system, ESSS. I clapped my hands twice. Clap, clap. Instantly, the sleek wooden steps of the spiral staircase retracted, transforming into a smooth, gentle slide. At the same time, a giant, inflatable cushion, shaped like a giant panda, inflated at the bottom of the stairs with a loud whoosh. It took 3 seconds. Claire, who had been leaning her weight back to fake a fall, lost her balance for real. But instead of tumbling down hard steps, she slid gracefully down the polished ramp, squealing in confusion, before landing with a soft poof into the panda's belly. The entire ballroom went silent. Then, the guests burst into applause. Oh, look. Mom clapped delightedly. Eva deployed the fun slide. She was always so terrified of tripping in heels, so we had this installed. I walked down the slide carefully, sitting down, and winging softly all the way to the bottom. I landed next to a stunned Claire. Are you okay? I asked loudly, for the benefit of the crowd. I saw you wobble. Thank goodness, I had the slide installed. You could have broken a leg. A handsome man in a tuxedo stepped forward to help us out of the panda. He had sharp cheekbones, cold eyes, and an aura of immense wealth. Harrison Sterling, the male lead, the CEO of Sterling Corp. He looked at the slide. He looked at the rubber vase on the table. He looked at me, patting down my dress to check for imaginary dust. Ingenious, Harrison murmured. I've always hated stairs. Unnecessary risk variables. I looked up at him. Right? Statistically, staircases are the #1 cause of domestic accidents. Harrison's eyes lit up. It was the look of a man who had finally found a kindred spirit in a world of reckless walkers. Do you have unparalleled fire suppression systems as well? Halon gas in the library, high-pressure mist in the bedrooms, I replied breathlessly. Claire, currently struggling to get her heel out of the inflatable panda's ear, was completely ignored. Claire was desperate. The pity angle failed. The frame-up failed. Now, she was moving toward darker tropes. The drugged drink scenario. We were at a private family dinner. Harrison Sterling was there as a guest. Apparently, he wanted to discuss security infrastructure with my father, but he spent the whole time asking me about my panic room specs. Claire poured the wine. She was being overly solicitous, apologizing for her past behavior. She handed me a crystal goblet, actually high-grade polycarbonate. To sister, she smiled, her eyes dead. I held the glass. I didn't drink. Aren't you thirsty? Harrison asked, watching me intently. I am, I said. But I have a strict policy. I never consume liquids without a pH test and a chemical reagent strip. I reached into my clutch and pulled out a portable toxicology kit. It looked like a very thick pen. I dipped it into the wine. The tip turned a violent, neon green. Oh my, I gasped, covering my mouth. High concentrations of laxatives and a mild sedative. How strange. The table froze. Maybe it's the vintage? Claire squeaked, sweat beading on her forehead. Old wine goes bad. Laxatives are not a byproduct of fermentation, Claire, Leo noted dryly, adjusting his glasses. He was back to being an iceberg, but now an iceberg who aggressively protected me. Harrison picked up the glass, sniffed it, and set it down. Inefficient, he said coldly to Claire. If you wanted to neutralize a target, you should have used an odorless compound. This smells like cherry syrup. He turned to my father. Mr. Sinclair, your security is compromised from within. I suggest an audit. Dad looked at Claire. He looked old suddenly. The denial was fading. Claire, he said softly, go to your room. We will discuss your living arrangements in the morning. Claire stood up, knocking her chair over. Why? She screamed, the mask finally shattering. She's crazy. She wraps the world in bubble wrap. She wears a helmet to brush her teeth. Why do you all love her and not me? Because, I said, voice trembling, hiding behind Harrison's broad shoulder. I value my life. And apparently yours too. If I hadn't tested this wine, you would have been charged with poisoning. I hate you, Claire shrieked and ran out. Impressive reaction time, Harrison whispered to me. Marry me? Is that a proposal or a security protocol?
Both.
I have a bunker in the Swiss Alps. It has negative pressure air filtration. I accept. The plot demanded a climax. In trashy web novels, when the villainess is cornered, she resorts to the black market kidnapper. Claire had been sent to a boarding school in Europe, but she had one last card to play. She drained her trust fund and hired a group of mercenaries to snatch me. I knew it was coming. My phone, which I triple-tracked, had picked up localized interference. My drone, which patrolled the perimeter of the estate every hour, had spotted a black van parked 3 blocks away for 2 days. I didn't call the police immediately. I needed to catch them in the act to ensure Claire went to prison for good. I went out for a walk. I wore my favorite oversized hoodie. Underneath it, I was wearing a layer of Kevlar, a stab-proof vest, and a GPS beacon sewn into my skin. Okay, it was just taped, but it was strong tape. The van screeched up. Men in masks jumped out. Get her. They grabbed me. I didn't struggle. I went limp. Dead weight is harder to carry, Self-Defense Chapter 1. They threw me into the van. We got the Sinclair girl. Check her for weapons, one grunt said. They patted me down. They found a taser, pepper spray, a collapsible baton, a loud personal alarm, a flare gun. Jesus, is she Rambo? The driver asked, tossing the pile of weapons into the front seat. She's clean now. Tie her up. They tied my hands with zip ties. Poor amateurs. I waited until we were on the highway. Then I flexed my wrists. I had taped a small razor blade to the inside of my wrist, covered by a flesh-colored bandage, specifically for zip ties. It's a classic trope counter. I cut the ties. Then I spoke. Gentlemen, I feel I should warn you. The thugs jumped. Shut up. The car you were driving, I said calmly. I hacked its OnStar system 10 minutes ago. I've disabled the brakes and locked the doors. Also, I've routed the GPS to the nearest police precinct. Bullshit, the driver yelled. He slammed on the brakes. Nothing happened. Also, I continued, I released a canister of sleeping gas from my locket about 30 seconds ago. It's fast-acting. Your lock. The guy in the passenger seat slumped forward, snoring. The guy next to me grabbed his throat, eyes rolling back. You crazy. He passed out. The driver panicked, trying to steer, but the car was slowing down autonomously, pulling into the parking lot of the police station. I took a deep breath through my nose filters. Always wear nose filters when deploying gas, and waited for the car to stop. When the police swarmed the vehicle, they found 3 unconscious mercenaries and me, sitting politely with my hands folded. Officer, I said, tears welling up. I'd like to file a report. And please check their burner phones. I believe you'll find a wire transfer from a C. Sinclair. The trial was swift. The evidence was overwhelming. Between the wire transfers, the confession of the mercenaries, who were terrified of me, and the recordings from my button camera, Claire didn't stand a chance. She was sentenced to 10 years. My parents were heartbroken, but they finally accepted the truth. They visited her once, but she just screamed about rubber vases and unbreakable cups until they left. Life returned to normal. Or my version of normal. Harrison and I got married in a ceremony that was essentially a security briefing with cake. The venue was a fortress. The guests had to pass through 3 checkpoints. The bouquet was made of silk flowers, no allergies, no thorns. The ring was made of tungsten carbide, unbreakable. As we stood at the altar, the priest asked, "Do you, Harrison, take Eva to be your lawfully wedded wife, to protect and to cherish?" Harrison adjusted his earpiece. Affirmative. "And you, Eva?" I looked at the audience. My parents were crying tears of joy. Leo was guarding the perimeter with a team of drones. The world was safe. I was safe. "I do," I said, pending a final background check on the priest. Harrison squeezed my hand. "Already done, darling. He's clear." I smiled. For the first time since being reborn into this chaotic world of tropes and traps, I let my guard down. Just a little. I still checked the structural integrity of the wedding cake before cutting it. You can never be too careful. A bomb in the cake is a classic season 2 opener. But as the knife sank through the soft sponge and didn't hit anything metallic, I realized that maybe, just maybe, I could finally enjoy the sweet taste of a happy ending.